Hello, YouTube. A friend of mine on Facebook shared a blog post today with the comment, "Every single word of this article rings true." I like this friend a lot. We've had many fun times together, so I decided to approach this article with an open mind despite the title. The thing all women do that you don't know about. All women. All women. See, that right there tells me that unless you're talking about a bodily function or a basic fact of human life not specific to women, that title is factually incorrect. There are very few behaviors that could be attributed to all women. So, for the sake of reading this with an open mind, I'll choose to ignore that part. When the article says all women, I'll just pretend that the author is talking about the author's personal experience and maybe the experience of some of the author's friends. So let's go through this with an open mind, shall we? There's this thing that happens whenever I speak about or write about women's issues. Things like dress codes, rape culture, and sexism. Yes, those do seem to be the main issues women face. I wonder what the main issues men face are. Wait, no, open mind. I get the comments. Aren't there more important things to worry about? Is this really that big of a deal? Aren't you being overly sensitive? Are you sure you're being rational about this? Some of those are certainly silly things to say to someone making an argument. Then again, some of them might be valid responses. What if you're actually being oversensitive? What if you're not being entirely rational? I mean, things like rape are very emotional topics. It would be totally understandable if you're not being completely rational about it. I haven't read your other stuff, but if it's like other things I've read and heard about subjects like rape culture, it's often based on some pretty suspect evidence. That could be a part of the source of your problem. But let's assume that you're being rational and these comments are unjustified. Unfortunately, some people suck. Every single time. It would be nice if everyone agreed with you all the time. I, for one, though, appreciate when people challenge my viewpoint. Frankly, I hope someone points out something I've said or done wrong in this video if I make a mistake. Every single time I get frustrated. Why don't they get it? Some people are stupid. Some people troll other people for fun. That could be it. And that's discounting the option that your opinions are wrong or based on faulty assumptions. I think I've figured out why. They don't know. Yeah, that could be it too. They don't know about de-escalation, minimizing, quietly acquiescing. As far as I know, those are pretty universal human behaviors. But yeah, sure, maybe some of the people commenting are just terrible at self-awareness. Hell, even though women live it, we're not always aware of it. But we have all done it. Okay, so some women are not very self-aware either. We have all learned, either by instinct or by trial and error, how to minimize a situation that makes us uncomfortable. How to avoid angering a man or endangering ourselves. We have all, on many occasions, ignored an offensive comment. We've all laughed off an inappropriate come-on. We've all swallowed our anger when being belittled or condescended to. Hey, me too. I can really relate to this article. Why is it about women, though? This really seems to be a human issue to me. Okay, well, I'm sure this article will explain how it's specific to women. It doesn't feel good. It feels icky, dirty, but we do it because to not do it could put us in danger or get us fired or labeled a bitch. So we usually take the path of least precariousness. When she writes we, I'm just going to assume she's talking about herself and other women she knows really well, not all women, because I'm sure there's many women that statement does not apply to. Icky, though? Really? That seems like a kind of immature response to things that bother you, but no, okay, no, I'm taking an open mind to this, open mind. It's not something we talk about every day. We don't tell our boyfriends and husbands and friends every time it happens, because it is so frequent, so pervasive, that it has become something we just deal with. Yeah, that's one way of responding to that stuff. Sometimes the best thing to do when something bothers you is just to forget about it so it stops bothering you. You could always try to put a stop to it, but confrontation is not for everyone. I understand that. So maybe they don't know. Maybe they don't know that at the tender age of 13, we had to brush off adult men staring at our breasts. Yeah, that must suck. Having breasts is an interesting conundrum. They can provide you with all sorts of opportunities due to men falling all over themselves to please you, but they can also produce some uncomfortable situations like what you're describing. Not having breasts myself, I can't say whether the pros outweigh the cons. Maybe they don't know that men our dad's ages actually came on to us while we were working the cash register. Yeah, some men are really creepy. They probably don't know that the guy in English class who asked us out sent angry messages just because we turned him down. Wow, what a jerk. Some men deal poorly with the pressure involved in being the one who has to be the instigator of almost all romantic relationships. Sometimes the pressure of society telling men that their number one goal in life should be to be in a relationship with a woman is too much for some guys. And sometimes guys are just jerks. Either way, it sucks for the women who have to deal with these guys. They may not be aware that our supervisor regularly pats us on the ass. Whoa, okay, that is not acceptable. I assume you really need that job, because I think most women would be willing to risk losing their job to call out that kind of bullshit. And they surely don't know that most of the time we smile with gritted teeth, that we look away or pretend not to notice. Yeah, sometimes you have to make a choice between calling out shitty behavior and just living with it. I can't say I've had a boss sexually assault me, but I've had plenty of shitty bosses in my life, and I too have had to just grit my teeth and take it rather than risk losing my job. It sucks, I know. They likely have no idea how often these things happen, that these things have become routine, so expected that we hardly notice it anymore. It really sucks that you have so many shitty people in your life. So routine that we go through the motions of ignoring it and minimizing, not showing our suppressed anger and fear and frustration. Oh, and I thought we were on the same page. See, when I talk about ignoring stuff that bothers you, I mean not thinking about it, putting it out of your mind. If you do that, you shouldn't end up with suppressed anger and fear and frustration. What that tells me is that you're not really ignoring it. If something really bothers you that much, it might be worth considering what you can do about it. You could also try learning something like meditation that can help you control your thoughts better, so as to more effectively not let things bother you. Sorry if you're not seeking advice. When people tell me their problems, my default reaction is to try to think of ways that they could potentially solve it. It's a character flaw of mine, sorry. A quick cursory smile or a clipped laugh will allow us to continue with our day. We de-escalate. We minimize it. Both internally and externally, we minimize it. We have to. To not shrug it off would put us in confrontation mode more often than most of us feel like dealing with it. Yep, I can see why a lot of people like this blog post. It's really relatable to the general human condition. We all have different strategies for dealing with shitty people. Some strategies work for some people, other strategies work best for others. We learn at a young age how to do this. We didn't put a name or label to it. We didn't even consider that other girls were doing the same thing. But we were teaching ourselves, mastering the art of de-escalation, learning by way of observation and quick risk assessment what our reactions should and shouldn't be. It's really a shame that you keep bringing gender into this, because I can totally relate to that part about risk assessment and how to react. We go through a quick mental checklist. Does he seem volatile, angry? Are there other people around? Does he seem reasonable and is just trying to be funny, albeit clueless? Will saying something impact my school, job, or reputation? In a matter of seconds, we determine whether we will say something or let it slide. Whether we'll call him out or turn the other way, smile politely or pretend that we didn't hear it, see, or feel it. Yep, I do that too. Not just with men, of course, but yeah, I think everyone goes through a mental checklist when they're in an uncomfortable or disagreeable situation. Well, not the impulsive people, and not everyone does it all the time, but you get what I mean. It happens all the time, and it's not always clear if the situation is dangerous or benign. Well, I suppose that depends on how well you know the people involved and how good you are at reading people in general. I mean, I'm quite good at judging people's intentions for the most part, so this isn't really an issue for me, but I know a lot of people have trouble with that, so fair point. It is the boss who says or does something inappropriate. Man, you have had some shitty bosses. I feel for you. It is the customer who holds our tip out of reach until we lean over to hug him. Whoa, what the fuck? People do that? Man, if there's ever a time to get bitchy with a customer, that's it. It's the male friend who has had too much to drink and tries to corner us for a friends with benefits moment, even though we've made it clear we're not interested. I guess we all sometimes make bad choices with our friendships. The only good thing about situations like that is that at least you discover what kind of person that friend is, so you can stop hanging out with them. It's the guy who gets angry if we turn him down for a date, or a dance, or a drink. Yeah, that thing with the pressure on guys. Plus, yeah, again, some guys are jerks. I hate those guys. We see it happen to our friends. We see it happen in so many scenarios and instances that it becomes the norm. And we really don't think anything of it. Again, it really must suck that you've had such a shitty life. I'm a little confused, though, about your previous comment about suppressing anger and fear and frustration. I'm just trying to be clear about whether you actually don't think about it, or if you really actually dwell on it. I don't understand how you can do both. Maybe it's a subconscious thing. Until that one time that came close to being a dangerous situation. Until we hear that the friend who cornered us was accused of rape a day later. Okay, this is getting weirdly specific to keep using we. Maybe it's the royal we. Who knows, maybe it's a really common occurrence for women to have a friend drunkenly aggressively hit on them only to have them be accused of rape the next day. Maybe that's what people mean when they say rape culture. I don't know. Until our boss makes good on his promise to kiss us on New Year's Eve when he catches us alone in the kitchen. Again, wow, you've had some really shitty bosses. Or maybe these examples have all been the same boss. Either way, I assume that you really needed that job, because otherwise I think I would have gotten the fuck out of there. Those times stick out. They're the ones we may tell our friends, our boyfriends, our husbands about. Good. You certainly shouldn't stay silent about shitty behavior like that. But all the other times? All the times we felt uneasy or nervous but nothing more happened? Those times we just go about our business and don't think twice about. I don't mean to keep bringing up the suppressed anger, fear, and frustration, but I just really don't get it. But anyways, yeah, we all get uneasy or nervous based on someone else's behavior sometimes. I think usually the best thing to do is to learn what we can from it and then forget it. There's nothing you can do about it most of the time. It's the reality of being a woman in our world. I'm trying really hard to be open here, so I'm just going to assume that you don't realize that men go through the same kind of things. It's laughing off sexism because we felt we had no other option. I don't think you should laugh off discrimination and prejudice, but if you feel like you have no other option, I suppose there's nothing to be done. I'd be curious to hear some examples of discrimination and prejudice you face, although maybe that's coming later in the article. It's feeling sick to your stomach that we had to play along to get along. If it's affecting your physical health, it's becoming a serious problem. I mean, there's only so much stress a human body can take. If you're experiencing physical symptoms from people treating you poorly, it may be time to start thinking about what you can do about it. I mean, maybe it's all the suppressed frustration and anger that's causing this problem. But maybe writing this article was it. Maybe this was therapeutic for you. If so, good for you. It's feeling shame and regret that we didn't call that guy out. The one who seemed intimidating, but in hindsight was probably harmless. Probably. Well, the good thing about shame and regret is that we can learn from them and not make the same mistake again. I think this is a good message that you're sending to women. If what a guy is doing is completely inappropriate, call him out. Most guys have been raised to never, ever, 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 ever hit a woman. So the odds are you'll be relatively safe. And the fact is, there's a good chance they're not even aware that what they're doing is wrong. It's taking our phone out, finger poised over the call button when we're walking alone at night. Yep, that's one strategy to keep yourself safe. I prefer learning self-defense, but calling for help can be effective too. It's positioning our keys between our fingers in case we need a weapon when walking to our car. Yeah, nothing wrong with that if you're in a bad neighborhood. I wouldn't say it's healthy to be that fearful of being attacked no matter where you are though. I mean, being mindful of your surroundings and being prepared to react are always a good thing. But having a weapon at the ready all the time? That's bordering on paranoia in my opinion. But that's just me. If having a key between your fingers makes you feel secure and confident, go for it. It's lying and saying we have a boyfriend just so a guy would take no for an answer. Yeah, some guys have it in their head that persistence is a good strategy for picking up women. I mean, yeah, sure, it works sometimes, but a lot of guys could probably be a lot better at judging whether or not the girl they're talking to would respond well to that approach. It's being at a crowded bar, concert, or insert any crowded event, and having to turn around to look for the jerk who just grabbed our ass. I think jerks are just drawn to crowded events because it allows them to blend in. I mean, I've had my ass grabbed at those kind of events too. It's knowing that even if we spot him, we might not say anything. Confrontations at crowded events are difficult things. You don't know most of the people there, you don't know if the other person is drunk or on drugs. If it's loud and really crowded, people might not even realize what's going on, and you might have a hard time getting away or getting help if things go south. I can totally understand not wanting to escalate things in that kind of environment. It's walking through the parking lot of a big box store and politely saying hello when a guy passing us says hi. It's pretending not to hear as he berates us for not stopping to talk further. What? You too good to talk to me? You got a problem? Pfft, bitch. Does that happen a lot? If so, wow. It's not telling our friends or our parents or our husbands because it's just a matter of fact, a part of our lives. Well, it's a truism that nobody likes a whiner. I think we've all known somebody who feels the need to tell everybody else about every bad thing that happens to them, and most people don't like that person. It's the memory that haunts us of that time we were abused, assaulted, or raped. Those are very serious topics. It sucks that that happened to you. It's the stories our friends tell us through heartbreaking tears of that time they were abused, assaulted, or raped. I'm glad you have the kind of relationship with your friends where they feel that they can share that kind of thing with you. I hope I'd be able to tell my friends about that kind of thing without them laughing at me. It's realizing that the dangers we perceive every time we have to choose to confront these situations aren't in our imagination, because we know too many women who have been abused, assaulted, or raped. Well, we have to be careful not to let bad experiences, especially other people's bad experiences, color our perceptions of every situation. I mean, I totally understand, like, knowing someone who has had their house robbed can cause you to be more careful about personal security. That's only natural. But you don't want to end up becoming paranoid. You don't want to let bad people and jerks prevent you from living a full and happy life. It occurred to me recently that a lot of guys may be unaware of this. They have heard of things that happened, they have probably at times seen it and stepped in to stop it, but they likely have no idea how often it happens, that it colors much of what we say or do and how we do it. I think there's a lot that doesn't get said between people, especially between the sexes. I think more dialogue can be a good thing. At the same time, you don't want to become that person who is constantly talking about all the bad things that happen to them, especially if you're not interested in hearing about the bad things that happen to the person you're talking to. Maybe we need to explain it better. Maybe we need to stop ignoring it to ourselves, minimizing it in our own minds. Well, I'd say it depends. If it really is a minor thing, or just some jerk being a jerk, often the best thing is to just ignore it and forget it ever happened. I mean, you can't control the behavior of every person in the world. But if it's a repeat or completely unacceptable behavior, especially from someone you know, then ignoring it is often only going to make things worse because the person might not realize they're even doing anything wrong. If you don't say anything, they might even think you like it. The guys who shrug off or tune out when a woman talks about sexism in our culture, they're not bad guys. They just haven't lived our reality. And we don't really talk about the everyday stuff that we witness and experience, so how could they know? Yeah, that's fair. The only thing I'd be careful about is using the word sexism if you want to avoid people tuning out. See, for most people, sexism is basically the equivalent of racism, or prejudice or discrimination. So treating someone poorly just because of their sex. If you start talking about something that doesn't fit that definition, but you still call it sexism, that could cause a lot of people to not take what you're saying seriously. As a general rule, if the person is being a jerk or an asshole, it's better to stick with that label rather than assuming that your gender has something to do with it. It's likely that person treats everyone poorly. So unless you know for sure that they treat women badly but not men badly, then I'd probably avoid the word sexism. I think that would help with having more productive communication. So maybe the good men in our lives have no idea that we deal with this stuff on a regular basis. Maybe it is so much our norm that it didn't occur to us that we would have to tell them. I'm sure there are tons of men out there who have no idea what the women in their lives have to deal with. I'm sure the same is true though for everyone, about everyone else in their lives. I think it's generally true that most people don't know what most of their friends go through on a regular basis. It occurred to me that they don't know the scope of it, and they don't always understand that this is our reality. So yeah, when I get fired up about a comment someone makes about a girl's tight dress, they don't always get it. When I get worked up over the everyday sexism I'm seeing and witnessing and watching, when I'm hearing of the things my daughter and her friends are experiencing, they don't realize it's the tiny tip of a much bigger iceberg. Yeah, I think being more clear and explicit in your communication can be really helpful in getting better responses from people. I know if someone doesn't understand what I'm saying or why I'm saying it, the best thing for me to do is to explain it as best I can. Maybe I'm realizing that men can't be expected to understand how pervasive everyday sexism is if we don't start telling them and pointing to it when it happens. Maybe I'm starting to realize that men have no idea that even walking into a store, women have to be on guard. We have to be aware, subconsciously, of our surroundings and any perceived threats. Well, if you're experiencing paranoia, talking to people close to you can certainly help. Maybe they can help put things in perspective and help you to understand when and where it's appropriate to be on high alert and when it's appropriate to be more relaxed. Maybe I'm starting to realize that just shrugging it off and not making a big deal about it is not going to help anyone. We de-escalate. If something is a serious problem, staying silent is never going to solve it. We are acutely aware of our vulnerability, aware that if he wanted to, that guy in the Home Depot parking lot could overpower us and do whatever he wants. Good point. I think the first step in personal safety is to be aware of your surroundings. This is something men learn at an early age. On some level, when I'm in public, I'm always aware of what I'd do if things went sour. This is especially true when I'm with people smaller and weaker than myself who I'd be obliged to protect, seeing as I'm a man. Guys, this is what it means to be a woman. We are sexualized before we even understand what that means. We develop into women while our minds are still innocent. We get stares and comments before we can even drive, from adult men. We feel uncomfortable but don't know what to do, so we go about our lives. We learn at an early age that to confront every situation that makes us squirm is to possibly put ourselves in danger. We are aware that we are the smaller, physically weaker sex, that boys and men are capable of overpowering us if they choose to, so we minimize and we de-escalate. I'm not sure that's entirely true for all women, but if it's true for you, it's certainly worthwhile telling men in your life that this is what life is like for you. So, the next time a woman talks about being catcalled and how it makes her uncomfortable, don't dismiss her. Listen. I think the reason men do this is because a lot of women actually like being catcalled. The other part of it is I think men understand better than you why some men catcall. The intention is almost never to make the woman uncomfortable. It's usually just the men having some fun, or maybe even hoping against hope that they'll get a positive response, or even, dare say, a date out of it. Some men just see it as a form of harmless flirtation. So when women talking about being scared of catcalls, men tend not to take it seriously because they know it's almost always harmless. The next time your wife complains about being called sweetheart at work, don't shrug in apathy. Listen. To be honest, a shrug of apathy is a common response to a complaint, especially when the person complaining has no intention of actually doing anything about the thing they're complaining about. The next time you read about or hear a woman call out sexist language, don't belittle her for doing so. Listen. Maybe you're not aware of it, but there seems to be a growing group of women who consider almost everything to be sexist. When people hear constantly about things being called sexist even when they're not, it's understandable that they'll stop taking complaints of sexism seriously. The next time your girlfriend tells you that the way a guy talked to her made her feel uncomfortable, don't shrug it off. Listen. Again, complaining when there's nothing to be done about it. See, a lot of men are problem solvers. When someone complains about something, their default reaction is to try to fix it. So if you present them with a problem that they can't fix and they shrug it off, it's not because they don't care. It's because they can't do anything about the problem. If you tell your boyfriend that guy right there made you feel uncomfortable, then he's probably going to go do something about it. Most guys don't naturally react to complaints by offering just comfort. Listen, because your reality is not the same as hers. Yes, everyone experiences the world differently. Listen because her concerns are valid and not exaggerated or inflated. Well, yeah, in theory, but what if they are exaggerated or inflated? I mean, sometimes people exaggerate or inflate problems in order to get a certain response. And if a woman does this a lot, well, you've heard the story of the boy who cried wolf. Listen because the reality is that she or someone she knows personally has at some point been abused, assaulted, or raped, and she knows it's always a danger of happening to her. I really think you can actually have good conversations with guys about this kind of thing. Most guys, I think, would be very eager to discuss self-defense and personal protection strategies. They can tell you how they deal with dangerous situations and offer advice about how to react if someone attacks you. I think that's a great conversation that men and women should be having more often. Great idea. Listen, because even a simple comment from a strange man can send ripples of fear through her. Yeah, if a strange guy says something like, "I know where you live," that could be quite scary. But if you're routinely terrified by things said to you by men, that might be more of a problem on your end. Either way, it is probably a good idea to talk to someone about it. Listen, because she may be trying to make her experience not be the experience of her daughters. Yeah, I guess the guy you're talking to might be the kind of person to treat women badly. Maybe some guys just don't know that their behavior is unacceptable. And then if you don't tell them, they'll go act badly towards young women. Listen because nothing bad can ever come from listening. Yeah, we should always try to expose ourselves to different viewpoints. Just listen. I'm assuming you mean active listening, which includes asking questions and clarifying. But even so, I wouldn't end with that. Real communication involves a dialogue. When you're telling a man in your life about something that's happened to you, yes, he should give you his full attention and listen to what you have to say, especially if what you're saying is important to you. But then you should be prepared to give him the courtesy of listening to what he has to say in response. You shouldn't be expecting him to just listen to you and offer nothing but comfort and support. If you want that, I suggest speaking to a therapist who specializes in that kind of therapy. Because if someone is just agreeing with everything you say and not offering up opinions of their own, there's actually a good chance they're just patronizing you. So that's the end of the article. I tried my best to be open and to listen to what the author was saying, but I have to say it was difficult, especially when she kept writing as if she speaks for all women everywhere and making issues gender-based when it's not warranted. But that's a gendered lens for you. I haven't read anything else by this author, but I'm willing to bet she sees everything as a gender-based issue. I find it especially concerning that she seems to have implied that everything she complains about in the article is a form of sexism. To me, that's using an incredibly broad definition of the word sexism, and doing that only serves to rob the word of its power and to make it hard for people to be taken seriously when they experience actual discrimination and prejudice based on gender. On a final note, I recommend, if you have the time, to take a look through the comments of the article. The general theme seems to be men taking offense or disagreeing with points made in the article, and people responding to them by saying that the men didn't understand what the article was really saying, or didn't get the point of the article. There are a few shining rays of hope in there, though. Women who don't live in fear and don't see sexism in everyday life. I was going to include some of the comments in this video, but I think it's long enough as is. So I hope you enjoyed watching. As always, like, dislike, subscribe, or share as you see fit, and I wish you all the best.